Practice test for chapter 9. Question number 1. The slope of the line with the equation 3y equals 2x minus 12 is?
2.
How'd you get 2 over 3?
You have to get y alone, so you divide by 3.
So I have to divide everything by 3. This 12 over 3 becomes 4. And the slope is that mx plus b. Okay? Y-intercept of the graph of the line with the equation y equals 5x minus 10 is? Negative 10, because it's already written in slope y-intercept form. Okay? Question number 3. Which equation represents a line with a slope of 3 and a y-intercept of negative 4? So in my y equals mx plus b form, what's m?
3. Yeah.
And what's b? So what's my choice? C. Which of the following is the equation of a line perpendicular to 5y plus x plus 6 equals 0? In order for me to determine perpendicular, what do I need to know? Slope. So I have to take this equation and I have to isolate the y. So if I move the x and the 6 over, they both become negative. I divide by 5 and I get negative 1 over 5x minus 6 over 5. So what's the slope of this line? Negative 1 over 5. So what's the slope of my perpendicular line?
5.
The slope of my perpendicular line would be 5, which means my choice would be A. Because it's the only one that has the perpendicular slope. Which of these ordered pairs can be found on the graph of the line 3x minus 5y minus 4 equals 0? How do I know if the point belongs on the line? Substitute it in and see if it makes the answer true. So if I put 8 and 4 into this equation, what's 3 times 8? 5 times 4? So 24 minus 20 minus 4, is that equal to 0?
Yes.
Okay, so this is on the line. Okay, if I take the negative 3 and 1, 3 times negative 3? Negative 9. And then minus 5 times 1, minus 5 minus 4. Does that equal 0?
No.
No. Okay? So that eliminates A and it eliminates C. Because A and C have 1 and 2 as possible answers. So now if I look at 3, x is equal to 0, so I get 3 times 0, which is 0. And then I've got negative 5 times negative 0.8 equals 4. And is 4 minus 4 equal to 0? Yes. Okay, so this one's correct. So B is a possible answer, but I am going to have to check the last point to make sure that it's not some other combination of 1, 2, 3, and 4. So 3 times negative 2 is? And then negative 5 times 2 becomes negative 10. Minus 4 equals?
Not 0.
Not 0. So that eliminates D, and that leaves B for my choice. Okay, so if I look at question number 6, the point of intersection of the line 9x minus 3y plus 9 equals 0, and the y-axis is. So if this line crosses the y-axis, and it doesn't matter where, it could be here, it could be here, what can you tell me about the value of x? X will be equal to 0. So if I substitute 0 in for x, I will get my value of y. So I'm going to put the 3y to the other side to make it positive. And what does y equal? 3. So my answer is B. Because the point is x is 0 and y is equal to 3.
Once in a while I get that.
Okay?
Really?
Question number 7. X and Y intercepts are of the graph shown are integers. So the equation of the line PQ is what? So how do I find the equation of this line? You find the slope. So what's the slope? I have a rise of what?
5?
I've got 6.
Oh. All right.
If I'm going from point to point, I've got a rise of 6. And what's my run?
8.
Okay, so reduce 6 over 8, what do you get? 3/4. So if I write this in my y equals mx plus b, there's my m. What's b? 6. Okay, but if I look at the equations here, they're not written in the same form. How are these equations written? General form. So I need to write this in general form, which means I need to get rid of the fraction. So what do I multiply everything by to get rid of the fraction? 4. So if I multiply everything by 4, I will have a 4y, a 3x, and a 24. Because the 3 is positive, I'm going to move the 4y over, which will make it negative, and that will equal 0. And if it equals 0 on that side, it's going to equal 0 on this side. So my answer is C. Okay. Numerical response number 1. Given that the line above passes through the point 7.2 and k, the value of k to the nearest tenth is what? So I have to use the equation that I got from question number 7. Substitute in 7.2 for x. So what is 3 times 7.2?
21.6.
And I'm going to put the 4y to the other side because it would change that negative 4y to a positive 4y. 21.6 plus 24.
45.
Divide by 4. And what do I get when I divide by 4? 11.4. So in my box, 1 decimal point 4. Okay? I would not give you a numerical response question like this that relied on the previous answer. Because if you get that answer wrong, you're going to get this one wrong by default. And that's not how I would do things. So your numerical response questions will be a standalone. It might use the same information from above, but it's not going to be dependent on the previous question. Okay? Question number 8. If lines ax plus by plus c equals 0 and dx plus ey plus f equals 0 are parallel, then what can you tell me? So, if they are parallel, what do I know? What makes them parallel? They have the same slope. So I have to figure out what the slope of these are. So if I look at this first one, I've got by. I'm going to move the ax and the c to the other side, which means they'd both be negative. And then I would divide by b. So I get negative a over bx minus c over b. And then I can do the same thing with my other equation. I want to write it as a y equals mx plus b. So I have ey on one side, and I move the dx and the f to the other, which makes them negative.
You divide by y or b once you get y.
Yes, sorry, not b. Divide both sides by e this time, and I get negative d over e x minus f over e. So So what you guys told me before, if the lines are parallel, it means that the slopes have to be equal. So that means A over B has to be equal to negative D over E. When they're like this, I have proportions. I can cross multiply. So if I cross multiply, I get negative AE equals negative BD. If I look at my equations, C and D can be eliminated because they have the wrong combination. It's AD and it's BE. In A and B, my AE is positive. So how do I make this AE positive? Given that it equals 0. So if it equals 0, it means I have to move everything onto one side. I'm going to move this over to make it positive. So I will get a positive AE and a negative BD equaling 0, which gives me A as my possible answer. So this question really checks the understanding of parallel lines because you can't graph this, because you have no numbers to graph. Okay. Given that the line joining the points 2 and 3 and 8 and negative q, where q is a whole number, this line is perpendicular to the line 3x minus 2y minus 5 equals 0, what would be the value of q? So if I see something that says perpendicular lines, what does that imply? Something about the slopes. So let's start off with this equation and figure out what the slope of this equation is. So how would I start with that? What would I do with this 3x minus 2y minus 5? Put the y to the other side to make it positive. And then what? Divide by 2. So 3 halves x minus 5 halves equals y. So what's the slope of this line? 3 halves. What's the slope of my perpendicular line? So the slope of my perpendicular line is negative 2/3. And I have 2 points in which I can calculate the slope, so I can use my slope formula. The difference in the y values and the difference in the x values. So 3 minus negative x would become a 3 plus x, and 2 minus 8, which would become negative 6. Then I would cross multiply, so negative 2 times negative 6, positive 12, and then 3 times 3 plus q. If I remove the brackets, I will get 9 plus 3q. What would I do to solve from this point? Minus the 9, and what would I get? 3 equals 3q. And what does q equal? 1. Okay, question number 9. The equations of 4 straight lines are, which pairs of lines are perpendicular? So what do I need to know about my lines? Their slope. I need to know the slope of each of these lines. So I need to isolate the y. In 7x minus y equals 0, that becomes easy. The y goes to the other side. If I look at 2, the y is already positive, so I'm going to leave it on the left-hand side and move the 7x and the 6 to the other side, which means it would be a negative 6x and a positive 6. With 3, move the 7y over to make it positive, and then divide by 7. So I get 1/7 x plus 4/7. And with number 4, move the x and the negative 2 over, divide by 7. And there are my 4 equations. Now if I have a slope of 7, what would be my perpendicular slope? Because the slope of 4 is,
No, he's saying number.
I know.
Negative
1/7. Okay, so 1 and 4 are perpendicular slopes. If I have a slope of -7, what's the perpendicular slope to -7? 1/7, which means 2 and 3 are perpendicular slopes. So I have 1 and 4 and 2 and 3 are perpendicular. Okay. Question number 10, the line passing through the following points has what for an equation? So how do I figure this out? I need to find the slope first. So the difference in the y values, -2 minus -1. And the difference in the x's, -5 minus -2. So what is -2 minus -1? -1. And -5 minus -2. And a negative divided by a negative is a positive. Okay, so that gives me the slope. How do I use the slope to write my line? Slope point form. So which point do you want to choose? The 5 and 2? So I get y minus -2, which becomes a y plus 2, equals m times x minus x1. So x minus -5 becomes x plus 5. First thing that I want to do is I want to deal with this 3. Or sorry, with this 1/3. So how do I get rid of a 1/3? So I'm going to multiply by 3, which means I have to multiply the y plus 2 by 3. But on the left-hand side, this 1/3 and the 3 are going to cancel each other out, which will leave me with just the x plus 5. The x plus 5 doesn't get multiplied by 3. It kind of got blocked with this 1/3. So now I have 3y plus 6 equals x plus 5. I want my x's to be positive, so I move the y over, and I get a -3y. If I move this 6 over, I'm going to get a -6, which when combined with the positive 5 equals, which means my answer is D. There is another way that you could do this question. You could plug these points in and see which one of these lines is true. But you'd have to check both points. So you could do that as well.
Yeah, no problem. I'll keep everything. This already is knocked off.
Okay, numerical response number 3. The lines 3x minus y plus 2 equals 0 and 5x minus by plus 26 equals 0, where b is a whole number, intersect on the y-axis. The value of b is what? So if they intersect along the y-axis, what can you tell me about one of the points, one of the coordinates on the y-axis?
X is 0.
X is equal to 0. So that means if I let x be equal to 0, I'm going to find out what the solution to y is. So I get -y plus 2 equals 0. Move the y over, and I get that y equals positive 2. Now I can put that into this equation, because this point of 0 and 2 will be common to both lines. So 0 for x and 2 for y So I get a negative 2b plus 26 equals 0. If I move the 2b over to make it positive, I get that b would equal 13. Okay? Question number 11. Which equation represents a line which is perpendicular to L1 and has the same x-intercept as L2? So what information do I need to know?
The slope of L1.
The slope of L1. So find the slope of L1. The slope of L1 is this graph right here. So if I think of rise over run, the rise is 6, the run is 3, which means the slope would be 2. So then what would my perpendicular slope be? Negative 1/2. Okay? What else do I need to know? What other piece of information do I need before I write my equation? I need to know what the x-intercept of L2 is. And what is the x-intercept of L2? 2. So the x-intercept becomes the point 2 and 0. So now I can use my point slope form of my equation. Y minus y1, so y minus 0 equals negative 1/2 times x minus 2. So how do I get rid of this 1/2? Multiply everything by 2. This y minus 0 would just be y, which then I multiply by 2 and I get a 2y. What is 2 times negative 1/2? Be negative because of the negative 1/2. Okay, remove my brackets and I get 2y equals negative x plus 2. Bring everything to one side. Because this x is negative, I'm going to put it with the y. X plus 2y. This 2 would become negative when I move it over. And my answer would be A. And again, I possibly could figure this out. Nope, I couldn't. Or no, I might be able to by substituting 2 and 0 into the equations and seeing which ones match up. So I get 2 minus 2 equals 0, that would work. This one would be 2 plus 2, so that doesn't work. This one becomes 2 times 2, which is 4. 4 minus 4, that works. And this one doesn't. So I could use the point to narrow it down from A to A and C, and then I could use my slope to figure out which one would be my choice. Question number 4, numerical response. The equation of the line in the diagram is ax plus 2y plus c equals 0. The value of a over c to the nearest hundredth is what? So I'm given 2 points on the graph, which means I can find the slope. Slope is rise over run. So I have a rise of 2, 4, 6, 8, 9. And a run of 2, 4, 6. Now remember, this is a nice negative. So this is going to be a negative 9/6 or a negative 3/2. Now I can use my point slope form by picking one of those 2 points. If I pick this one, I've got the points 2 and negative 5. So y minus y1 becomes y minus negative 5, which is a y plus 5, equals negative 3/2 times x minus 2. First thing that I want to do is I want to get rid of the fraction, so I want to get rid of this half by multiplying everything by 2. So I get 2 times y plus 5 equals negative 3 times x minus 2. So again, remember, this negative 3/2 gets multiplied by 2 and it protects everything inside the bracket. So that anything inside the bracket stays as is. So now I have 2y plus 10 equals negative 3x plus 6. I'm going to move the 3x and the 6 to the other side. So I get a positive 3x, a positive 2y, and a positive 4. So then A over C is equal to 0.75. Question number 12, the equation of AB is x minus 2y plus 4 equals 0. AB cuts the y-axis at C, and the line CD is perpendicular to AB. So we're asked to find the equation of CD. What can you tell me about this point right here? The x value is equal to 0, and the y value is what I'd be solving for. So if I put it into this equation right here, let x be equal to 0, move the 2y over, divide by 2, and I get that y equals 2. So this equation right here is 0 and 2. And then the next part, if I take this equation and figure out the slope of that equation, I get x plus 4 equals 2y. Divide by 2 and I get a 1/2 x plus 2. So my slope is 1/2. So what's my perpendicular slope? Negative 2. So the slope of this line would be negative 2 of my line CD. So now I have a slope and I have a y-intercept. So I could use my y equals mx plus b. M is equal to negative 2. And b is equal to positive 2. They want this in general form, so I move everything over. I get a positive 2x and negative 2. And my answer is B. Consider a triangle PQR in which side PQ has a slope of 1/3 and R has coordinates of negative 4 and 7. The equation of the altitude from R to PQ, the altitude is a line that's drawn from R to PQ that's perpendicular to PQ, is what? So if you imagine what this would look like, R has coordinates of negative 4 and 7. So this is point R. And what I have is I have this line that's drawn from R that hits PQ. So let's say this is P and Q. It's going to create a 90-degree angle. So sketch-wise, that's kind of what it looks like. And then my triangle could be like this. So if side PQ has a slope of 1/3, what's the slope of this line through R? So the slope is going to be negative 3. And I have a point and a slope, so I can use my point-slope formula. Y minus 7 will equal negative 3 times x plus 4, because it would be x minus negative 4. So I get y minus 7 equals negative 3x minus 12. Put the 3x to this side to make it positive. The y is positive. And this time what you notice is it equals and the constant's on the other side. So if I move the 7 over, it becomes positive. With the negative 12 gives me a negative 5. And C becomes my answer. Okay. Question number 14. Which of the following lines are perpendicular to the line 9x plus y plus 2 equals 0? So if I write this as a y equals mx plus b, I get negative 9x minus 2. So what's the slope of this line? Negative 9. So what's the slope of my perpendicular line? 1 over 9. That's the slope that I'm looking for. That's my magic slope. So then I can go through and check the slope on each of these. So if I move the x over, I get a negative x. So I'm going to get a negative 1/9 with I, so that's not it. So that gets rid of A. Then if I look at 2, move the x over, it becomes positive. Divide by 9 and I get a 1/9. So B is okay. If I look at number 3, it's already in y equals mx plus b form, and it is not equal, because it's not a 1/9. So that gets, so I'm kind of still stuck between, no, that gets rid of this one. And it can't, if it's 2 only, it can't be, oh no, I still have to wait for that one. It can't be C, because it can't be just 2 or just 3. So it could be, but I have to check. So this one becomes y equals 1/9 x minus 2/9. So this also has my magic slope, which means it has to be D, because it can't be B and C, so it has to be some other combination. Question number 15. The line L1 passes through the points of negative 3 and 5 and negative 2 and 1. Which of the following statements is true? So in order to find out which statements are true, what do I need to know about this line?
Its slope.
I'm going to need to know its slope. So if I find out its slope, it's the difference in the y's. So 5 minus negative 1 becomes 5 plus 1. And negative 3 minus negative 2 becomes plus 2. So I get 6 over negative 1. So I get negative 6 as a slope. So if I know the slope is negative 6, could the line be perpendicular to 1/6? Yeah, because that's the negative reciprocal. So that would work. What else will I need to know?
An equation.
I need an equation, because that equation is going to help me with 2 and 3. Because this having an x-intercept means that it's the point negative 13 and 6 over 0. So if I have an equation for this line, I can then check those 2 points. So I can use my point slope form. Y minus 5 equals negative 6 times x minus negative 3, which would become x plus 3. So I would get y equals negative 6x minus 18 plus 5, which would give me negative 6x minus 13. And then I can double check my 2 points. So if I look at this first point, I get that y has to be equal to negative 37 and x is equal to 4. What is negative 6 times 4? And what's negative 24 minus 13? So that's true. So now I need to check this x-intercept. So that means that y is equal to 0 and x is equal to negative 13 over 6. So what is negative 6 times negative 13 over 6? The two negatives would make it a positive 13. The 6's would cancel. And what's 13 minus 13? Is that true? So my answer would be D. Temperature at sea level is 12.1 degrees Celsius. At the top of the mountain, which is 6,400 meters above sea level, the temperature is negative 29.5. To the nearest tenth, the rate of temperature decrease in degrees Celsius per kilometer is. So degrees Celsius per kilometer. This gives me how I should be dividing things. This is my slope. Remember, slope is a rate of change. Rise over run. So that means that my degrees Celsius has to be on this side and my kilometers have to be on this side. So the temperature at sea level is 12.1. So if this is 0, that means my temperature is 12.1. At 6,400 meters above sea level, which would be 6.4 kilometers, the temperature is now negative 29.5. So there's my slope. Rise over run. So this becomes 12.1 minus negative 29.5 over sea level would be 0 minus 6.4 because I need to go per kilometer. So 12.1 minus negative 29.5 equals 41.6 divided by negative 6.4 equals what?
Negative 6.5.
Okay. Because in the question it says the rate of temperature decrease, that takes care of my negative. So my answer becomes 6.5 degrees Celsius per kilometer. Okay, so I'm not going to do the written response question. We will look at the next practice test.